Any company which thinks it has to define a purpose for Hellmann's Mayo has lost the plot. That woke me up. Company asked the question, how do I become more digital? How do I use more AI? How do I become more sustainable? This is always the wrong question because we put a technology in the center. Politicians, regulators genuinely believe that this would make the world better. Any big thing in the world gets started because of people of passion. It's people with passion that change the world. It's the same thing in sustainability. People with passion got on board. But as with anything, sometimes the pendulum swings too far. Now we got to swing it back and say, listen, the goal is not just regulation. That shouldn't be the solution to all problems. But innovation is.
Well, your book, Clean Winners, in it, you open with Emily, a young sustainability professional at Unilever, watching everything Paul Pullman built get dismantled by the new CEO. After studying hundreds of companies, what was the moment you realized the conventional wisdom on sustainability was broken?
Great point, David. It came from the most unexpected source. And why do I say that? For years, many business schools, whenever they talked about strengthening your brands, etc., if it is a consumer side business, Unilever was the poster child for how to do it. Right. And it said, hey, business can have a very positive role in society. Look at Unilever. It's building these purposes and their brands have taken off. And so this was a very exciting case to teach. Right. And it always landed. Right. Everybody who listened to it as we navigate through the case discussion or company discussion, people would be like, wow, what a great example. I'm so glad I got exposed to it. It is helping me rethink, right? And so then one day I'm reading the Financial Times and there's an article on Unilever and it was the CEO after Paul Pullman, Alan Jope. And there it was a statement by an activist investor, Terry Smith. And Terry Smith made some comments in there that really woke me up, I would say. And I was not hallucinating, but maybe I was comatose, right? Not thinking hard enough, And what did he say, right? He said, Unilever's management seems to be more interested in showing sustainability credentials and how important they are. And I thought, okay, fine, that's okay. But it was the next statement that he made that really caught my attention. And he says, any company which thinks it has to define a purpose for Hellmann's Mayo has lost the plot. That woke me up because everybody was talking about purpose and brands with purpose, companies with purpose, and how that creates a wonderful North Star. And that really got me thinking. And I can elaborate more in terms of why, if you wish.
Sure. Yeah. Why don't we double click on that?
Sure. So I went back and I thought, okay, is he right? Or is this just an activist investor who wants quick returns? Right. And as I kept thinking through it, and I said, what is he really saying? Right. And is it really about Hellman's or is it about a broader issue? And I just dawned on me when I kept looking at Unilever results, the growth had stagnated. It had really stagnated. They were underperforming many of the other companies, P&G as an example. Right. And then I thought, okay, they got 300 brands at Unilever. You're operating in more than 100 countries. And then I thought, wow, do consumers remember the purpose of any brand? Do That's from the consumer side. So I used to go into my classes with executives and say, take your most favorite brand and write down its purpose in whatever words you want. Believe me, I've had asked more than 1,000 people this question. Not one could come up with one of a
Not one.
product. Not one of a
Wow.
product they loved.
I was thinking taglines like Apple's think different or Nike's just do it, but is that
But the
separate from the
tagline is not
purpose?
necessarily their purpose, right?
Hmm.
And so, for Hellman's, it was, at least that's how they translated it, is food is too good to be wasted. And I would say, hey, can you connect this to Hellman's? And
Hmm.
nobody could, right? So first, that was one test. Second, so sure, Unilever did a fantastic job, I have to say, with a brand called Lifebuoy, right? Because Lifebuoy is a soap, strong disinfectant. And if parents wash their hands with a good soap, then you don't pass on germs to kids, right?
Hmm.
Africa, in India, a lot of kids were dying because parents didn't take care of hygiene. Soap, hygiene, disinfection, don't pass on germs, help your child live. Perfect. No problem. Absolutely clear connection. Big success. But when you have 300 brands, how many like this are you going to find? So then I started asking myself this question: can you, as a marketing person, really create these unique messages for, if not 300, 25, 50 brands? How much more will it take in marketing resources? How much effort will it take the organization? And I started seeing, actually, sounds good in theory, but from a practical standpoint, you are going to waste a lot of resources. So that opened up my eyes to saying, if this is not the right way to think about sustainability, then what is, right? So what's the wrong way? The wrong way, and you can relate this to AI if you wish. We saw this with digital transformation. When a company asked the question, how do I become more digital? How do I use more AI? How do I become more sustainable? This is always the wrong question, because we put a technology in the center. We put, sustainability in the center. That will always give you bad results. You might have some hits, don't get me wrong, but it's hit or miss,
Hmm.
because companies don't need a digital culture. They don't need an AI mindset. We see tons of articles on this, right? No, you just need a customer focused mindset, solving customer problems every day better than your competitor. That's all you need. Technologies like AI, digital, or an enabler like these are sustainability is an enabler. It should not be at the center. So that's when we started rethinking and say, what's the right question to ask? Because we could see this had happened with digital, it was happening with sustainability, and now it's happening with AI as well.
Definitely. Yeah. A faster car doesn't help you get to your destination if you don't know where you're going.
Where you're going. Exactly. What a great point, David. And that's when we said, putting any of these at the center is absolutely the wrong way to think through these problems. The only thing that matters ultimately for a business is, are you creating better customer value than your competitor? Right? So then, can you use sustainability as a catalyst for driving more customer value? Meaning, better performing products, more affordable products, and performance in a broad way. It could be delivery, it could be product quality, it could be any of these things that matter to a customer, maybe more convenience, right? That's the only thing. So, can you use sustainability? Same thing we have to ask with AI. It's not, do I have 25 use cases and I showed something some savings here or there. Is you AI ultimately driving more customer value? If it doesn't, it's not going to create a competitive advantage. It will be another efficiency engine.
Mhm.
So that is the fundamental shift in the thinking.
That's a very important distinction that you lay out. I'd like to talk about your four mindsets framework.
Yes,
You categorize companies into four sustainability mindsets: operators, drivers, enthusiasts, and resonators. About 75% of companies are operators or strivers, and only 10% are resonators. What separates the resonators from the enthusiasts who are investing just as heavily but getting worse results?
absolutely. The enthusiasts are the ones who say we need to be the leaders in sustainability in our industry. Sustainability becomes the massive priority, and a lot of trade offs are made in favor of sustainability. Even if it means increasing costs, worse than increasing costs is reducing customer value on a performance basis. Because they want to deal with the hard sustainability problems. They want to be seen as the ones that are changing the world. And so that's what the enthusiasts do. Will they have some successes? Of course they will. But it's hit or miss. For every success, you probably will have two failures. I'm just making this as an approximate thing. And that's the problem. So eventually, it will get derailed. You will have resistance. The resonators are asking the flip question, as I said. And I don't want to sound sort of facetious. Actually, my co author, Frederic Dalsas, came up with this. And he said, maybe we need to use a sentence from a famous US president. Ask not what you can do for sustainability, but what sustainability can do for you.
Hmm.
I think that's a good way, right? Sustainable. So I think you have to understand what exactly do we mean by sustainability, right? And then this can be in context because this is what the resonators are doing. Think about it this way, David. Anytime a company makes or creates some products or services, could be digital, non-digital, any of the physical products, whatever, right? You're creating some customer value, no doubt. That's the desired output. But very often in this creation process, there's a lot of undesired outputs as well. Okay.
Mhm.
Undesired outputs may be overstressed employees. Two, maybe just an inefficient way to create this that is consuming more resources than it should. Okay? So anytime you use more resources than you need to, that's a waste. That's an inefficiency. All those inefficiencies have an impact on sustainability, whether it is planet, whether it is, environment, water, or people's health, people's safety, people's whatever. It will always be related to things like this.
Mhm.
Okay? So we say, that is the area or zone of innovation, these undesired outputs. By the way, don't just look at what you do because that is linear. Also, look at how customers are using your products because they might create these undesired outputs as well. Okay? And I'll give you a concrete example. Also, look at others who are providing stuff to the customers. So, let
Mhm.
me give you a very simple example if that will help and it will make it very concrete.
Sure,
One of
please.
my favorite examples is John Deere. Okay? We all know that John Deere is in the ag business, has ag equipment. Now, John Deere they've been investing in digital for a long time, right? They've really brought in more and better features to help farmers get more productivity or yield, right? Or yield. They've been doing that for years. Now, they always look at it from their equipment standpoint. But now broaden that horizon and say, how does the farmer go about growing a crop? What are all the things that they do? And one of the things that you notice very quickly, John Deere noticed, is, let's say you're growing a seed of corn. You're growing corn, sorry, and you put seeds in a farm. You need to put fertilizer on it. Typically, the way they put fertilizer is along a whole row. So you got the seeds in a row and you put fertilizer in the entire row. You just spray it continuously along it. Now, here's where AI comes in, computer vision and robotics. What if you could put the fertilizer only on the seed and nowhere else? You can go to the farmer and say, I can save you a minimum 65% in fertilizer cost. By the way, when you don't put fertilizer where it is not required, your soil is healthier. Is there a single farmer who doesn't care about saving 65% on fertilizer cost? Is there a
I
single
wouldn't think
farmer?
so.
Is there a single farmer who doesn't want more healthy soil? Who wants to put unnecessary things that will deteriorate the quality of your soil and reduce your yield? These are people who are children of the soil. They have a lot of pride in seeing their farms thrive. This is what I mean by undesired outputs.
Hmm.
That
A lot
becomes,
of
yes, go ahead.
pardon me, a lot of the kind of counter to what you've put as a largely like difficult to challenge positive outcome is the compliance work that is associated with some sustainability implementation. Is this more a change management issue, like implementing a seamless way, like integrating compliance work with your sustainability initiative? Because in your book, one CSO said she spends 90% of her time on compliance. And another company had 18,000 regulatory changes to track in 2024 alone. So what is the issue there?
See, the issue there, it's unfortunate, David. And I think every CSO I meet, every CEO I meet, here's the problem, right? If so much of your resources have to go for compliance, then you have no energy to put it anywhere else in this area of sustainability. And there is no doubt that in many cases we've had excess compliance, excess regulation. And because of that excess regulation, companies have had to invest so much in just compliance. In fact, I had one of the big four company partners, like PwC, Deloitte, etc., who said, hey, I stopped doing advisory consulting in the chemical industry because I make more money just doing sustainability compliance reporting. That's terrible.
Mm,
That's a terrible thing. So
mhm,
so now why did we get there? I think politicians, regulators genuinely believe that this would make the world better. Perhaps that's what they genuinely believe. They also saw political pressure, right? People were protesting, remember at one time, there is no planet B. You better do something. So they might have gone over, you know. Now, but I always try to remind myself of one thing, David, is rather than blame anybody, I say, listen, any big thing in the world gets started because of people of passion. It's people with passion that change the world, right? It's the Steve Jobs, people with passion who have changed the world, right? It's the same thing in sustainability. People with passion got on board. But as with anything, sometimes the pendulum swings too far,
mhm,
right? Now we got to swing it back and say, listen, the goal is not just regulation. Regulation has a key role, don't get me wrong. The goal is not just regulation. That shouldn't be the solution to all problems, but innovation is. So if we have meaningful regulation and encourage companies to invest in innovation to reduce those undesired outputs, we create better value, and I believe we will move the needle on sustainability faster and better for everybody.
Well said. Yeah, the equilibrium or homeostasis seems to be an elusive target. As we advance in one dimension, we're sometimes unaware of underlying operating systems that garner our ability to stand there, and we discover it through our motion. I'd like to talk about the segmentation model, green, blue, gray, that pairs well with your four mindsets. Um, so you segment customers as greens who will sacrifice for sustainability, and blues who prefer sustainable if there's no trade off, and grays who are indifferent or skeptical. But you argue the same person can be green in one product category and gray in another. How should a leadership team deal with that instability when making long term investment decisions?
It's actually not so complicated, David. It's a fantastic question that you asked, but luckily there is a simple solution. I only believe in simple solutions, right? Now, if you think about the greens, and I've asked this question of thousands of executives, and the question that I ask always is this following: what is the highest percentage of green customers in your mind? And I can tell you, I've never heard a number greater than 10%. Sometimes people will flirt with 20 and then we talk about it and they say, it's probably not more than 10. So now, if your green customer, these are the ones who are willing to make a trade-off for sustainability. If it's less than 10%, then if you design everything for the greens, you may get a premium, but it is not going to scale. Is this clear? It will never
Yes.
scale. Large companies are always looking for scale. So our advice is the following. If you want to scale sustainability, and again, that's never the goal, right? The goal is to create customer value. The goal is to create a competitive advantage. You need to focus on those customers who care the least about sustainability, which is the gray customers, because they tend to be 50, 60% of the market very often. That's counterintuitive. So go back to the John Deere example. Does it
Mhm.
matter whether a farmer believes in climate change or no climate change? Does it matter what you think about the environment? No, I'm giving you healthier soil and I'm giving you 65% in fertilizer savings. But if you ask them, do you care about the environment? Do you prioritize it in your decision making? They'll say, no, maybe it's not in my top 5. You have to win with the grays, and that's the one you got to focus on. So that's the simple answer. Forget about the greens, premium, great. Get that premium, but it's a niche play.
Mhm. What I'm inferring from what you shared there too is alignment. So you have your North Star, as you put it, helping the customer, providing value to the customer, various ways to do that. But there's a lot of opportunity in how you do that, matched to sustainability, like you mentioned with the John Deere example. Now, you mentioned 3 pathways to resonance. And there's product resonance, making new offerings that are both sustainable and functionally superior, as your earlier example pointed out. Usage resonance, change how customers use existing products. And strategic resonance, use sustainability to enter new markets entirely. Which pathway do you see the most companies getting wrong?
I think they are getting, many of them have started with product resonance. Many have not even thought of strategic resonance. They've thought of product resonance first. Almost many companies start there, and most are getting that single piece wrong. So almost the place you need to start, if you get that wrong, there's very little chance you're going to go to the others as well. Okay. So, and that's because many times they were more, I think, driven by good, genuine, good intentions, right? I hate to label people as, oh, they're stupid or ideological. No, they were driven by good intentions, but I think they made poor trade offs in favor of the customer, right? I had one chief marketing officer who said this really, really well. He said, we made the unfortunate mistake of somehow thinking our goal should also be the customer's goals. So we were making trade offs, hoping the customer will accept those trade offs, right? For a performance. So you come up with uh, something to clean your floor, and if you have to use 30% more liquid, most people don't want that. Or you have to
Mm,
clean twice. Most people don't want that. Let's be clear. Most people don't want that. So product resonance is something that many people are not getting, right? I think that's a good place to start. I think this second play, I mean, like P&G, I think I saw one for Ariel recently, said 10 minutes, you have clean clothes. That saves you water. That saves you electricity. But most important, I don't need to wait for a cycle to get over, you know. So, I mean, that's simple product resonance.
right. Sorry, were you going to add to that?
No, I was going to say, I think there's a huge unexplored opportunity done well with usage resonance, which is, can you create business models around, getting customers to use assets a lot more that might be just sitting at home or just
Right.
sitting in their yard? That's usage resonance. So, can we create new models? Tell you, there's so much AI will drive enormous innovation in usage resonance. Let me give you one simple example if you wish.
Sure, please.
Mining industry, right? B2B business, right? Mining industry. Now, when the leading manufacturers of the world in mining and construction equipment, the Caterpillars of the world, they do a fantastic job, as we know. But one of the big costs is actually the safety of the operator, right? You have to put a lot of technologies to keep the driver and surroundings safe because there are people walking around, lots of things. Now imagine, I know of a company, I'm not going to take the name of the company, where they've created autonomous mining vehicles and trucks. Okay. 8% is the accident rate in mines. They can eliminate that. They can run 24/7.
Mm.
Better all. And they are now saying, don't pay me for the truck, actually pay me for how much I'm hauling. This is usage resonance. Okay.
Yeah, that's
So
incredible.
that is incredible, right? So we are elevating safety, we are elevating productivity, we are not putting drivers in dangerous situations. um, you know so there are many, many benefits that come from it, and I'm getting better productivity from an asset that is often underutilized, right? It goes through one shift. We know the number for automobiles, etc., that they
Mhm.
use hardly 5% of the time. It's in the truck, in the mining industry, sure, they get more, but it's 30%, 40%, not 80%, 90%. So just that's better. That's better for the business. That's better for environment. That's better for everything when you do that. When you can get more use from an asset, who doesn't like?
In addition to that, there's a higher probability of data collection as well. Greater data could open up new market opportunities, expanding the economy. Speaking of AI, should boards be evaluating their AI investments through the same resonator lens you apply to sustainability? Or is there a parallel between sustainability theater and AI theater?
David, what a fantastic question. I think absolutely 100%. They need to have the resonator lens, because so many companies that I talk to and I say, what are you doing in AI? And they'll all say, many of them are using a spray and pray approach. right? We'll do many pilots, we'll do many things, and that becomes the badge of honor. But it's AI first. I think that's okay for 2 years. But if you don't flip and connect it to how does this make us more competitive in the market? How does this create more customer value? You can be caught up in this use case and present at a conference and everybody will clap. But are you really moving the needle in competitiveness? Maybe not. Exactly the same lens, which is why I said you don't need an AI mindset. You don't need digital mindset, sustainability mindset. You just need a customer focused mindset.
Mhm. You direct IMD's strategy governance for boards program. When a board is evaluating a sustainability initiative, what's the one question they should ask that most boards aren't asking?
It's a fantastic question. Uh, I think a lot of boards are also responsible for where companies are going with sustainability. And the reason is boards often feel as outsiders, hey, I need to do my job and push an organization in the right direction. And they feel if you're benefiting society by prioritizing sustainability, then I push the organization in the right direction and I've done my job. So boards have often been sort of responsible for where organizations and CEOs have also taken their companies on sustainability. So what's the question that they're not asking that they should be asking? I think the question they should be asking the board is, how do we know that our sustainability investments are creating a more favorable competitive position for us? Not, are we getting better talent? Are our people more motivated? Are our people... Now, don't get me wrong. Talent is everything. We know that, right? Every business knows that. But do I need sustainability to do that? Everybody needs to create a great culture so you attract the best talent. Why do I need to make more complexity by saying, oh, let's use sustainability as the way to get it? Then 15 others, somebody else will say, let's use agile as a way to get talent because we work well. Somebody else, you're just confusing and bringing complexity to an organization.
Mhm.
You need a focus on customers and you need a focus on creating a great culture that people anyway want to work in.
How do you see the role of the chief sustainability officer evolving? Your earlier example with the Big Four consultant and in your book suggests that a separate CSO might actually be part of the problem, or at least how it's applied currently.
Huge problem, David. I think not because of fault of anybody. I think they were given the charter of saying, let's meet these sustainability targets. And we know, right? What gets measured gets done. We all know that we are all human beings. I would behave exactly the same way. Plus, with the regulation becoming more and more complex, as more countries jumped in or more whatever jumped in, their role became prioritizing sustainability and showing we are meeting our targets. Whatever targets they were set by the company and what they've announced, and so on. So they did their role seriously, as any serious business person would do, right? Now, what a lot of companies have realized is, that's not working very well. So, in some companies, they've now put this under the role of innovation, or they've combined these roles. I know a Swiss chemical company where they've done that. At another FMCG firm, it's part of the marketing role and innovation role. I think once you have them embedded into these roles, and you have the people there who are thinking business, brand value, customer value, etc. first, then I think you solve it. I think you still need a CSO just to keep track of all the changing regulations, and they're changing all the time. So you need somebody paying attention to that. But
Mhm.
I think the role has to be different.
Yeah, you made a strong example about how it can align pretty seamlessly with innovation. It is in itself innovation, perhaps poorly applied. Um, your conclusion compares the current sustainability backlash to the .com crash. BlackRock and Goldman Sachs exiting climate initiatives, SBTI removing 239 companies, including Microsoft and Walmart, Deloitte reporting growing disengagement. You call this a correction, not an ending. What does Sustainability 2.0 actually look like once the correction plays out?
Thank you for picking that up. I think this is how we sort of explain it, right? Because a lot of people are saying, oh, is it over? So I think here's why we use the .com analogy. You know, during the internet first era or whatever of that internet, where, maybe we are seeing something like that with AI, there was so much enthusiasm. But with that, there were a lot of bad business ideas that got born, right? A lot of bad business plans that got funded. Now, when the .com crash occurred, many of those bad business ideas, went to the dust. However, did the internet go away? Did the importance of digital go away? It didn't go away. And
Mhm,
companies that stayed on it and understood that this is fundamentally transforming the world came out and thrived later. Especially as you hit COVID, they were like ready, right? Even though that was 15, 20 years later, right?
mhm,
If you believed that there's a lot of wastage, there's a lot of inefficiency, there's a lot of undesired outputs, but we just haven't had the lens to look at them because we were too inward looking, then those problems are there to, even though there's a backlash against sustainability. The problems don't go away. So those who stay on it and look at it as from an innovation lens, which is sustainability 2.0, it's an innovation. Innovate on the undesired outputs to create better products and affordability for your customers. They will ultimately be the winners. I have no doubt. They'll also be the winners because they will also build more resilient supply chains. As an example, if you're in the chocolate business,
mhm,
you need to source cocoa, right? Let us say you have a mid-price ranged chocolate, Kit Kat, as an example. Now, cocoa futures are at a 47-50-year high. If this continues, two things are going to happen. One, many farmers are not going to produce cocoa, they move into other crops. Two, even if you can source the cocoa, you don't get it in the right quantities, so you have to keep increasing the price of your chocolate. Then you're no longer a mid price chocolate, you start going into much higher bands of chocolate. So a Kit Kat has to be maybe in the price range of a Lint.
mhm,
Ooh, I don't know if Kit Kat would play very well in that price range. So if you're smart, you already are looking at how do I build that resilient supply chain? How do I keep farmers in the business of cocoa? Part of it is by improving their welfare. Part of it is by helping them grow, using better agronomic practices. So you have healthier soil, more productive crops, more naturally resistant crops against things. So you don't have to use as many pesticides.
mhm,
So this is all back innovation, front innovation, and innovation is the source of competitive advantage. That's our key point.
mhm. For a company that realizes right now that they're a striver or an operator and they want to move toward resonance, what's the first concrete move? Not the 10-step framework, but the one thing they should do Monday morning.
I think the first thing is, I learned this from a CEO. He said, how do I know what is a company's strategy? He said, there's only one way you know. It's not looking at their documents, but looking at where they've invested their money. their resources. That's the only way you know, because strategy is about placing a bet on something, right?
Right.
So you have to move resources. So an operator, they need to fundamentally believe that they can innovate better than they were doing before and move money more into innovation, but with this constraint, saying, don't just look at our little product, look at broadly where is the undesired outputs, wastage, inefficiencies, and let's innovate better. So move money more into innovation, but with this broader lens. That's the one
Mhm.
step. One step. You don't need a 10-step book here.
Yeah, definitely resonates. So the book is called Clean Winners. Who is the single best example of a clean winner most people haven't heard of?
There are many examples. Um, there are many examples. One of my favorite, and I'll bring up a hidden gem here, is actually a seed company out of Thailand called East West Seeds. Okay. Most people don't know East West Seeds, right? And what these people have done is they focus on smallholder farmers. And what they've done is come up with seeds that are naturally resistant to pests and give more productivity. So it was a wonderful story of a Dutch person who went to that region and saw the smallholder farmers having not good growing practices, not using the right seed. And then his innovation was all on better seeds for smallholder farmers that are naturally more resistant. Naturally more, meaning they've used grafting procedures, not GMO, but grafting procedures, etc., to do that. And it's a hidden gem for me. And they deploy a lot of people to educate farmers on how to grow better. Great business. Hidden gem.
I'll,
That's a hidden
I'll
gem. There
check
are
it out.
many,
Thank you for sharing.
many like that. There are many like that.
No doubt. Well, where can people follow you, get in touch? Where would you like to direct them? And lastly, was there anything that you wanted to leave us with that you didn't get to mention so far?
No, thank you, David, first for the opportunity, right? I'm very grateful that I get to, reach your listeners with the very simple messages, I hope. I think they can follow me, of course, on LinkedIn. I'm not a big frequent poster. I'll do my best. I'll try to do more. Um, so just follow me on LinkedIn. I think the single best message that I would leave you with is don't get pulled into political discussions on topics. Try to think independently and clearly, and just ask always, if it is a business thing, are they creating better customer? And don't get
Great
caught
point.
in politics. Do not get, because that colors your vision. Both sides. Both sides. We have people on both sides, and I want to sidestep all that.
Well said. Well, thank you for speaking with us today. It's a really great book and really great conversation.
Thank you so much, David, for the opportunity.